right, some of you are noticing we got some new music here as we launch Illinois in Focus Daily from the mobile unit. Good morning. We are live, so that's a good thing. After yesterday, I think, didn't get any confirmation, but I think the Amazon Web Service issue was messing with us for the live stream in the morning. I mean, I even had trouble logging into my retirement account to be able to find out how my accounts were doing, which was a little alarming at first, but obviously something that we got through altogether. So we're back at it this morning to give you more Illinois in Focus daily. So appreciate everybody joining, especially live as you get into the live chat and take part in conversations about what we're going to be tackling this morning. Now, this week, we've been away from the General Assembly. They were in last week for fall veto session. They're off this week. They come back next week. And I think we got to do some previews of what to expect. So we'll do that later on this week, but we'll be looking at, the transit fiscal cliff. We'll be looking at energy policy, which obviously is huge for a lot of people. But you've also got a variety of other issues that are going to pop up, including, as the governor calls it, Trump-proofing Illinois. Is there going to be any conversation about oversight of state agencies? What about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which we heard about concerning the federal government shutdown that's ongoing, which actually last night Senate Democrats voted for an 11th time to essentially keep the government closed. So all of that coming to a head November 1st with the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program dollars that could be frozen, impacting 1.9 million Illinoisans. And just to give you an idea, for an entire year, Illinois costs federal taxpayers $700+ million in food benefits. So that's something else that may come up next week. But next week's going to be really, really busy. And I hope that you do join us because we will be bringing you each and every weekday morning Illinois in Focus daily. But I also want you to go over to thecentersquare.com where you can get the latest headlines in your inbox simply by going to newsletter, clicking, and putting in your info, and you'll be able to get the latest headlines, including the Senate Democrats blocking the bill to end the government shutdown for an 11th time. And you can go and read some of that, plus other national headlines, including the president's son at Reagan Library. You can see what's going on with energy in different parts of the country, and including focusing in here on Illinois. So go get those headlines in your inbox and make it happen. All right, so coming back, we'll have to talk about the latest in the ongoing Supreme Court. Now, it's in the Supreme Court. The battle over whether or not President Donald Trump can use the National Guard for public safety. A couple of stories out of the country yesterday. One over in Oregon, another here in Illinois. This issue is going to be ripe soon for the U.S. Supreme Court as the Trump administration seeks an emergency motion to be able to use the National Guard for public safety. So that's what we're going to get to here soon with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning. It's right here again with the Center Square. Illinois asking the U.S. Supreme Court to take the case challenging the use of the National Guard for public safety. Good morning. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning here for the Center Square. I'm the editor. My team and I, we bring you the latest, and we've got some of the ongoing back and forth about whether or not President Donald Trump can use the National Guard for public safety. So let's go ahead and get on into it. Be sure to get to the website, thecentersquare.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter each and every weekday morning. And you might notice a little different space than what we typically have at the home office. I'm on the road, making sure that we've got an alternate way to get the show out to you after yesterday, some AWS problems messing some stuff up. And some people already noticing in the live chat. Yes, some new music. It's stuff I've had in the past. I just didn't use it here for Illinois in Focus. But as I'm remote, I had some access to my tunes and pulled in some new music, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. But let's get into it, all right? So go to the website, thecentersquare.com, click on Illinois, and you'll be able to see the latest headline. Illinois asks Supreme Court not to give authority over to National Guard. To give Trump authority over the National Guard. So let's go ahead and read this. All right, the state of Illinois asked the U.S. Supreme Court not to hear President Donald Trump's request to deploy the National Guard to Chicago amid disagreement about plans for immigration enforcement in the state's most populous city. Top attorneys for Illinois and Chicago said that Trump has overstepped his authority. They were joined by officials from Los Angeles, California, and elsewhere in the legal fight over who controls troops. Now, here's a quote from the Attorney General's office from Illinois saying that the court should decline applicants' request to unsettle the equitable judgments reflected in the Seventh Circuit's order and to take the dramatic step of permitting deployment of National Guard troops over Illinois' objections for the handful of days the temporary restraining order currently remains in effect. Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul's legal team wrote in a legal filing. Now, what's interesting here is, give us some background. So you've got the president having talked for weeks about wanting to get the National Guard into Chicago, saying he's going to save Chicago, make Chicago safe again. And Governor J.B. Pritzker pushed back. You had Democrats essentially saying that Trump was being an authoritarian and he was going to use the military. Even the governor saying that he's not a conspiracy theorist, but he believes that Trump wants to use the military to influence the 2026 election. But you had the president use the National Guard over in Los Angeles whenever there were protests that turned violent against immigration enforcement. That was challenged in the courts. And then you had the president use the National Guard in Oregon, and that was challenged in the courts. And then you had the president working with local officials in Memphis to have the National Guard. All of this while the president had previously used the National Guard in Washington, D.C., and I believe still is, to clean up public safety in the nation's capital. Now, the president has that authority, though it's limited for the nation's capital. The arguments are that the president does not have the authority to use the National Guard for public safety. But if you look at the orders from the U.S. Northern Command about the deployment of troops in Illinois, it was to protect federal agencies and federal personnel and their equipment and their property and their persons, because you've seen that some of the things can get chaotic whenever ICE is on the ground performing immigration enforcement. And again, in Illinois, you have federal officials saying they have to flood the zone because of the state's migrant sanctuary policies. So let's go back over to the article that Brett Rowland from the Center Square put together. The state and other challenged Trump's authority to deploy the National Guard to cities over objections of local leaders. Illinois officials said that federal authorities aren't needed. Applicants' contrary arguments rest on mischaracterizations of the factual record of the lower court's views of the legal principle, the state said in its response. As the district court found, state and local law enforcement officers have handled isolated protest activities in Illinois, and there's no credible evidence to the contrary. Now, on the side of the Trump administration, America First Policy Institute, a nonprofit group, said that Trump should control the orders over the National Guard. They said plaintiffs have asserted 9 claims, each of which is a variation of the same underlying request for the federal courts to second-guess the president's determination that the conditions for federalizing the National Guard have been satisfied here. Attorneys for the group wrote, "There is no express private cause of action to bring these claims, and for nearly 200 years this court has recognized that the president's determination is non-justiciable." Filings in the Illinois case came the same day that a 3-judge panel, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, overturned a temporary restraining order issued by a federal judge in Portland, Oregon, removing a judicial obstruction that prevented Trump from sending Oregon National Guard troops to Portland. The ruling comes in the wake of Trump deploying National Guard troops to U.S. cities, including Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Portland, Memphis, and Chicago to protect the work of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. Agents have been attacked, hampered by agitators and protesters against ICE enforcement in U.S. cities. The legal battles continued to move on multiple fronts, and that's the expectation. And while the hundreds of National Guard troops are already in Illinois, U.S. District Judge Amy Perry stopped their deployment. She said she found federal officials' assertions about coordinated violence by protesters unreliable. And we've seen the stories and the headlines come out of the Department of Homeland Security, where Kristi Noem has been pretty vocal about the increased attacks that she's seen on federal law enforcement enforcing immigration law. And she said that that's an ongoing issue, especially in states and jurisdictions that have migrant sanctuary policies. Here is Kristi Noem yesterday down in Florida, but she mentions Illinois and Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Administration.
And can you also talk about the communication between ICE and local law enforcement agents that...
We would love to have local law enforcement across the country participating with us. Many times that's not true. Here in Sarasota, it's been fantastic. Here in Florida, it's been amazing. But you go into other communities and other states, and many times those governors are political. Those leaders in those towns, Portland's a great example of the mayor who chooses to play politics instead of keeping his citizens safe. Governor Pritzker in Illinois is putting his people in danger every day by going against us and not working with us to make sure that we're detaining individuals who have criminal charges against them or have been convicted and then re-releasing them out on the streets. We're starting to see better partnership out of some law enforcement officers who recognize that their citizens feel differently than their political leaders. Their citizens recognize that they want their streets safer. We saw that in Washington, D.C., that people that experience the freedom of being able to walk down a street, go to a restaurant again, be able to, conduct normal life and let their kids play in a playground, they enjoyed it, and they let their political leaders know that, and they've cooperated with us more. We continue to have targeted operations in many, many cities, but also very focused on those where challenges are still remaining, such as Portland, Chicago. We're in Memphis as well. We're going into San Francisco at the direction of the president as well. We're going to continue to make sure we're focused not just in those cities that we hear about on the news, but also cities like Sarasota, that we make sure that law enforcement officers in every single community get the chance to continue to get these criminals off of their streets.
So again, that's Kristi Noem yesterday down in Florida talking about the need for continued federal efforts in protecting law enforcement officers, especially in migrant sanctuary jurisdictions. And will the U.S. Supreme Court act on the Trump administration's emergency motion before the temporary restraining order that was issued Thursday before last? So we're coming up on that 2-week window this Thursday of the temporary restraining order being lifted. Here we are Tuesday morning. We'll see where this goes in the U.S. Supreme Court and whether or not President Donald Trump's going to be able to deploy the National Guard to Illinois. Be sure to get to thecentersquare.com and get the newsletter in your inbox so you can stay up to date, but also you can wake up with us here each and every weekday morning for more Illinois in Focus Daily. Oh, I'm muted. Awesome. Let's just go ahead and start that segment all over again. Thanks for the heads up on that as we broadcast remotely. Still working out some of those kinks here with Illinois in Focus. Let's do that. All right. All right, give me a heads up. Yep, looks like we're back. Till Valhalla, thank you, appreciate that. Live to tape, folks. That's right, Brian. All right, let's do this. In the most recent agriculture reports, it looks like China has not bought any soybeans from the U.S., which is a major issue for a state like Illinois, which is the country's largest soybean producer. And how much is that going to impact, and what is the Trump administration going to do about it? Well, if you go over to thecentersquare.com, you'll be able to read the latest, not just on this story, but many others, including this headline from the Center Square. Pritzker not confident that Trump can solve the soybean trade deal with China. So again, get over to thecentersquare.com where you can get the newsletter in your inbox each and every weekday morning, and you can wake up with us here for Illinois in Focus Daily. So we talked a little bit about this yesterday with President Donald Trump talking about trade and Governor J.B. Pritzker on Friday being critical. But yesterday, the president was meeting with the Prime Minister of Australia, and during one of the moments where the press could ask questions, the issue of trade came up with China, and rather fascinating to see some of these numbers that the U.S. Department of Agriculture puts together. I'm going to pull this up for you so that we could see this for ourselves. So this is the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Foreign Agricultural Service. Soybeans. Outstanding export sales and exports by country, region, and markets, 1,000 metric tons. You look at Greece, we sold 20,000 metric tons. Italy, 100,000 metric tons. But you go down to China, and it's a big goose egg. Where this time last year, they had purchased 6,513,000 metric tons. So China is not buying any soybeans. And again, Illinois being the largest producer of soybeans in the country, that's going to impact the state's agricultural climate. Now back to the story, you've got Governor J.B. Pritzker, who is critical of this, and again, President Donald Trump having talked about it as well. But the president also talked about it again yesterday. So here's the governor from Friday, President Donald Trump from yesterday, but also President Donald Trump from the day before on Sunday on Air Force One. So let's go ahead and get this out.
So, I mean, we're talking about, I believe, more than $12 billion of sales from Illinois soybean farmers that normally would be sold to China if we had just regular trade going on. It's not something special. That's just what it would be this year, if not for the tariffs and the tariff war that has ensued from the administration.
It's probably nicer. Saying you're going to pay 158, 157% tariff is a nicer way of saying that we don't want to do business with you. And if they don't do business with us, I think China's in big trouble, I'll be honest with you. I think China is, I don't know that they even make it. I really do. I believe that they're in big trouble. And I don't want them to be in big trouble. I want them to do great. I want them to thrive. But we have to thrive together. It's a two-way street. I think when we finish our meetings, and it's going to be a big deal. Look, I'm meeting with a lot of other countries, but this seems to be the one that people are very interested in. I think when we finish our meetings in South Korea, China and I will have a really fair and really great trade deal together. I want them to buy soybeans. They stopped buying our soybeans because they thought that was punishment. And it is punishment to our farmers, but we're not going to allow that to happen because I made a great trade deal with China a $50 billion trade deal, and they were great about it. They were doing everything that they were supposed to do. And then when Biden came in, I used to call President Xi all the time to say, thank you, or you're not buying enough. In other words, they were supposed to buy. Biden, do you think Biden ever called him? I don't think Biden ever called him. You think Biden lied awake at night thinking about trade with China? He didn't know what he was doing. He was an incompetent president. We had an incompetent president, but you don't have that anymore. So I think we're going to end up having a fantastic deal with China. It's going to be a great trade deal. It's going to be fantastic for both countries, and it's going to be fantastic for the entire world.
There isn't a solution to this, but I can tell you it's abominable that the federal government is providing $20 billion to bail out the Argentine economy, and that has allowed Argentina to now trade their soybeans with China. And we're talking about replacing almost all of what Illinois would have provided. And it's, again, because they've prioritized in Washington the foreign government of Argentina over the farmers of Illinois.
Argentina's fighting for its life. Young lady, you don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive. If I can help them survive in a free world, I happen to like the president of Argentina. I think he's trying to do the best he can. But don't make it sound like they're doing great. They are dying. All right? They're dying.
What do you mean by
Again, so the back and forth over trade policy on the impacts to agriculture, these are clearly ongoing issues that aren't going to go anywhere anytime soon. And how it's going to ultimately lead to the bottom line of these family farms. And will the Trump administration be able to get China to purchase more soybeans? These are clearly some of the major issues when it comes to whoever's president and how they communicate with other countries, especially a country the size of China. Now, again, the president is confident that he'll be able to get a deal because he slapped on 157 or 158% tariffs, and he says that sends the message we don't want to do business with you. But if that's the case, then you've got the possibility that this trade war can continue. So President Donald Trump being clear in wanting to get a deal with China, having said he did that before when he's president previously, but that was also right before COVID. If you remember, in 2019, he pulled together this deal, and it was pretty rough for farmers because there was a prolonged period of time where there was so much uncertainty, but then the Trump administration back in 2019 was able to secure that $50 billion deal for farmers. And then COVID happened. And we all know just how the world really got turned upside down at that time. So something we talked about yesterday, a little bit of an update with the president from yesterday afternoon, but I think it's something to continue in the forefront because agriculture is obviously a major component to Illinois' economy. Again, Illinois being the largest producer of soybeans in the country. We also have a lot of exports for corn and a variety of other things. So it's one of those points where we've got to stay on top of it to keep you guys posted on how all of this is playing out. All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily. Be sure to go to the website to get the latest, again, at thecentersquare.com, where you can see what the headlines are in Illinois and beyond. But get the newsletter in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. Each and every weekday morning, we're here with you for the Center Square. So greatly appreciate you guys being here. And be sure to share it up with your friends as well. All right, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. All right, so wrapping things up here this morning. Some tweaks I need to make with the live studio. Got a different rig in here. I kind of want to put another camera in here somewhere. I got to get that screen figured out, too. See if I can get a graphic on there, just so you guys know it's the Center Square and Illinois in Focus. But greatly appreciate everybody tuning in and being patient yesterday as well as technical issues with, I'm thinking it was The AWS problems, the Amazon Web Service problems that were reported out yesterday. So it looks like everything's back to at least streaming clean and we're good. All right. I do want you to get to thecentersquare.com. Check out this latest story out of the Supreme Court when it comes to the Second Amendment. And this story from Andrew Rice, a Center Square reporter. Supreme Court to consider drug user gun possession case. So this is a case that we're going to be trying to track as well. Again, go to thecentersquare.com and you can read about this. The U.S. Supreme Court agreed on Monday to hear a case regarding whether regular drug users can possess firearms. The case is challenging whether federal statutes barring a person who is an unlawful user or addicted to any controlled substance violates the Second Amendment. The case centers on a Texas man who was charged with a felony when FBI agents found a pistol, marijuana, and cocaine in his home after obtaining a search warrant. The Trump administration petitioned the high court to hear the case after a lower court struck down the law barring people who use drugs such as marijuana from possessing firearms. The Trump administration argued that regular drug users can simply stop their use to regain access to firearms under the law. By disqualifying only habitual users of illegal drugs from possessing firearms, the statute imposes a limited, inherently temporary restriction, one which the individual can remove at any time simply by ceasing his unlawful drug use. So that's another Second Amendment story that's starting to percolate and is all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Courts where they could decide to take that case. But we are also still awaiting the outcome from the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals on Illinois' gun ban. Because once the appeals court makes their ruling, if it's against the plaintiffs and sides with the states, the plaintiffs may just go right to the U.S. Supreme Court instead of seeking an en banc full appeals court panel hearing. Because right now there's only a 3-judge panel that heard the case. So clearly that's another angle that we're going to continue to track as well. So get to thecentersquare.com. It's a free newswire service. You don't have to pay to get our articles. You get the newsletter in your inbox free, so you can stay up to date with what's going on in Washington, D.C., and even right here in Illinois. All right, so we'll see you back here tomorrow for more Illinois in Focus Daily.